Hi there. This is a quick video I made spur of the moment about money values in the House of the Dragon prequel era to Game of Thrones. What spurred me to do this is a cryptocurrency scam that has recently been going around. That on social media, not just me, but other fan channels that cross-post YouTube videos or long-form analysis, when we post these things, this cryptocurrency scam is trying to sell House of the Dragon themed cryptocurrency. That's what they call it. I'm not going to give their actual name because I don't want to promote them. And it wasn't just one person. That's what scared me, that within a day, 6 different accounts tried to post to my Twitter account when I post up, here's a new analysis video about House of the Dragon casting or whatever. There were 6 different replies trying to catch attention of my followers going, hey, if you like this House of the Dragon news, buy this House of the Dragon themed cryptocurrency. And I blocked the first one, and then wait, there's another one, and another, and another. This has actually been happening to other channels too, that there is this cryptocurrency scam going around. And what makes it a scam? Purely the fact that it isn't official House of the Dragon cryptocurrency. And the only thing that makes... I hate it when people do, it's House of the Dragon themed. How? Because we slapped the name onto it, like Game of Thrones. I hated it when people go, we're selling Game of Thrones themed beer. No one drinks that in the show, they drink wine. Or a Game of Thrones themed sneakers, or a car that like this. How is this Game of Thrones themed? Well, a car I guess could have a paint job, but they don't drink beer. What are you talking about? This isn't a thing from their universe. That whole merchandising thing, not just for Game of Thrones, but all sorts of stuff where it's not even, well, it has a paint design on it. It's they pooped in a box, slapped the name Star Wars on it, and suddenly everyone's buying the authentic Wookiee poop, because you slapped the name onto it. It has nothing to do with it. So there's this group going around. It's not one person. It's actually a group of people they're spamming these advertisements for House of the Dragon themed cryptocurrency, which is ridiculous. I could almost think, if HBO itself put out non-fungible tokens for like House of the Dragon artwork, well, that's official. It's from HBO. Or if HBO itself tried to make a cryptocurrency, I think it's stupid, but I wouldn't call it a scam. This is someone made a new cryptocurrency just in their garage and said, let's call it House of the Dragon themed cryptocurrency. And they're really aggressively marketing it around, and I keep having to block them. And it's gotten really annoying. So because of that, that made me think of economics and money in the Dance of the Dragons prequel era, which I've talked about in other videos I've made over a year ago about, well, what can we expect about economics in this? So this is a warning video. Do not fall for the House of the Dragon cryptocurrency scam. It has nothing to do with anything. Guys, they just slapped the name House of the Dragon onto their cryptocurrency. It has nothing to do with anything. No more than the beer does. That it's Game of Thrones themed beer. How? So, first off, warning you about that. And second, I wanted to quickly talk about issues raised about economics and currency in the upcoming prequel, which will be different from the original show, Game of Thrones. And also, this is hilarious because they were spamming that cryptocurrency stuff for the past 2 weeks or so, and I'm making this video on Tuesday, December 7th. Oh, date that will live in infamy. And earlier this week, Thursday, last week, there's this huge Bitcoin crash. They lost like 10% of their wealth. So invest in our untested independent cryptocurrency. No. Their thing is cryptocurrency, which they go, well, it's better than real currency. How? Well, it's untraceable. If they try hard enough, they can trace it, as we've seen with criminal investigations. Well, the transaction fees are smaller, allegedly. They've done research that the amount of energy that you have to put into data mine stuff to buy bitcoins, that you get bitcoins and stuff by doing math problems, or you basically lease out your computer to do computation, that they worked out that the heat energy cost is lower than, you aren't making money from when you generate bitcoins, that the environmental impact from all the heat energy used in the computing value, it doesn't add up. They're not really breaking even with Bitcoin. And those are just the big ones like Bitcoin. There's all these knockoff, I'm really talking about the knockoff cryptocurrencies. Well, the issue is that's cryptocurrency, digital currency. We're dealing with a medieval society that is still on the gold standard. Their money is based on precious metals. I actually did a convention panel on this once, I'll link it below, that basically in the modern era before digital currency, there's basically two kinds of real currency that people use: fiat money and commodity money. Commodity money is based on the gold standard, or sometimes the silver standard, based on the value of precious metals, gold, silver, copper. Whereas fiat currency, fiat money, is, fiat means I decree in Latin. So it's based on the fact that the government says it's worth this much. It's a theoretical unit of debt, which the government will force people to redeem if you push it. So because our money system switched to fiat currency after the Great Depression in the 1930s, money is what the government says it's worth. It says in the money that the government will redeem your debt for this. So all the major currencies, the United States dollar, the euro, the British pound, these are fiat money. And because they are theoretical units, there's a difference in how that works with commodity money. Because when you're on the gold standard, if you sell a lot of gold all at once, the value of gold drops. So if you spend a lot of money in a commodity money-based system, value of money changes. Recently, the Dune movie, the Dune movie that came out, the adaptation, there's a line where Baron Harkonnen mentions, start selling our spice reserves, but not too quickly because we don't want the price to drop. That if you dump a commodity on the market really fast, like release all of your oil reserves or release all of your gold reserves, the value drops because it's not as rare anymore. So commodity money economies worked differently because if you spent a lot, the value of money itself changed. That doesn't happen with fiat money because they're theoretical units backed up by the government. So you can spend an infinite amount of these theoretical units, theoretically an infinite amount of dollars or euros. It doesn't change the value of the money. The value of money changes due to all these other complex things with the economy in general. But in principle, the value shouldn't change just because you as a private citizen spend a lot. It does because of, economic factors and all this other stuff. I am not an economist. I'll tell you right out now. I just know this in general from being in medieval studies. I've picked up a bit of it, but that it's different in their commodity-based economy. Preston Jacobs is another he's a much bigger Game of Thrones themed analysis channel. He actually knows economics. He has studied economics, at a college level. I haven't. In his recent podcast, he was actually talking about this a bit, not about Game of Thrones, but he's talking about the real life economy and about like Keynesianism versus the Austrian school, which is crazy. So I'm very interested in what Preston Jacobs has to say about what I'm talking about here in terms of inflation cycles in Westeros in a commodity-based economy. That their money is different. They're on the gold standard. We are not. So money behaves differently. He probably knows more than I do. This is just the basics of it, of what is the issue here. That it's not like, well, cryptocurrency, there's this blockchain in the cloud, and it's, no, buy gold. It's solid. You can see it. It's silver. I have a couple of silver Roman coins. I mean, they're watered down because they're from late Roman, but it's just, wow, I have actual silver. That's how the economy functions. I'm joking. The point is, how does economics work in Westeros? I have this full hour panel I did on this linked below. This is the short version. What is the issue at stake with House of the Dragon and the Dance of the Dragons prequel era? Now, this starts like 200 years before Game of Thrones. Money values would be different. Well, to start with, what is their currency system? This is brief. Their economy is based on the gold dragon coin and its denominations, which the basic three coins you need to know are gold dragons, silver stags, and copper pennies. One gold dragon equals 210 silver stags, and one silver stag equals 52 copper pennies. Martin made it random like that on purpose, that it grew out of customary use. It's not a metric system. They wouldn't do that. So, like old British currency, they don't use a metric system based on 10. And the idea is that when the Targaryens invaded and conquered Westeros, they united the Seven Kingdoms and made this new unified currency system across the entire continent. Keep in mind that the Targaryens ruled for 3 centuries, so in House of the Dragon, the conquest was only 100 years ago, because it's 200 years before Game of Thrones. So this isn't too long ago, historically speaking, that about 100 years before this, the conquest happened. They said, we're going to make this new currency system. Some of the coins they did co-opt from earlier systems. They mentioned that the silver stag was already being used in the Stormlands, and they co-opted it because it was a good coin. Things like that. And there are a few other coin combinations. There's like copper groats and silver moons, which are just rarer coins that are worth slightly more. You don't need to know that. It's gold dragons, silver stags, copper pennies. These are the only 3 that were mentioned in the Game of Thrones TV series itself. All 3 were mentioned at least once. And I don't think a TV show even should mention, well, there's like a double copper called a groat. You don't, that would confuse people, that there's 3 things going on, the classic structure of gold, silver, copper. So they co-opted some, invented some other new ones. They made a new currency. But there were local currencies before that, even like A Song of Ice and Fire. There's a point where they see, oh, this is an old Reach coin. They don't make them anymore. Stuff like that. They co-opted some, invented some new ones. They made a new currency system from Old Town to the Wall. Across all of Westeros, there's this new currency system based on the Gold Dragon. How much is a Gold Dragon worth? Well, the thing is, commoners usually just use copper pennies. Gold dragons are really, really expensive. They're not. It's like if I were to say that the United States money system is based on stacks of $10,000. Like a 1 copper penny is what commoners use as like, how much is that meal at an inn? Like 20 coppers? It's like their equivalent of the dollar or the euro. The gold dragon is actually a really expensive coin. In Game of Thrones itself, when they're in the Riverlands, Jaime and Brienne think that 1 gold dragon is a good price for an entire horse. So you're talking, the rough figure I give people is 1 gold dragon is roughly a horse. In the Game of Thrones era, War of the 5 Kings. The issue is there's one prequel era that did spell out pretty clearly what money values are, the Tales of Dunk and Egg. A lot of that prequel series is him, because he's this low-level mercenary hedge knight, trying to get enough money to buy a suit of armor and stuff. And if you pay attention to the frequent mentions of money in Dunk and Egg, because he's always looking for money, the money values of things in the Dunk and Egg prequel era, about 90 to 80 years before Game of Thrones, money values in Dunk and Egg are about 3 times what they were in the War of the 5 Kings era. That in the first Dunk and Egg novella, he sells his horse, and it's not worth 1 gold dragon. He gets 3 gold dragons and change for it. That he thought it was worth 4. And you see that in other things. I have a whole video on this, that money values, the numerical value of it, is about 3 times higher in the Tales of Dunk and Egg era. We have no idea what gold dragons were worth in the 2 centuries that preceded that. What were they in a potential Targaryen conquest show when they just make... A Targaryen conquest show would actually feature, like as a subplot, they'd mention, we're introducing a new currency. But they're not doing that now. Or like the Blackfire rebellions, if they ever do one about Aegon the Unworthy and the first Blackfire rebellion, different historical era, who knows that the money is the same. But particularly for this whole other big prequel era, the Dance of the Dragons, 200 years before Game of Thrones, 100 years before Dunk and Egg, we don't have any examples for the number value of money. They don't mention, I paid 300 gold dragons to buy 100 horses or something. That we have nothing to go on. I mean, there's one point where Corlys Velaryon says he'll pay a king's ransom of 10,000 gold dragons. That's no basis for comparison. We don't know, like, well, how much is a horse worth? This will be an issue in the TV show coming up. Because, Game of Thrones generally had a good idea of how much money was worth. Even when they had to make up money values, they wouldn't say, let's put out a price on his head for 1,000 gold dragons. No one would pay 1,000 gold dragons for Sandor Clegane. That's silly. Like, Brienne is ransomed for 300 gold dragons in the books, and it's considered a big ransom. So they said, put out a ransom for 100 silver stags. They generally had a sense of how much money was worth. They didn't mention it that much, but they could tell, like, when people are buying food, they pay in coppers. When they're buying a horse or really expensive things, lords buying a full suit of armor or an entire war horse would pay in gold dragons. And we just talked about that they said they are actively developing a Dunk and Egg prequel pitch. You will see frequent mentions of money in that, and you'll notice money values aren't the same in the Dunk and Egg era. It's exciting. We just got news that they've attached a writer to a Dunk and Egg prequel. That has basis for comparison. They spell out very clearly what money values are in the Dunk and Egg era. Any money value that they mention on screen in Dance of the Dragons will be an invention of the TV show. And this is something I'd ask them or ask Martin himself. Did you work out that money wouldn't be the same value in a different prequel era due to inflation? Because it wasn't in Dunk and Egg. And again, I have this whole hour-long panel discussing inflation cycles in the Middle Ages. Why do things go up and down? Short version is this. The big comparison is when the Black Death hit real-life medieval Europe, so many people died that the surviving workers could unionize in labor unions for better wages, because there was actually, for the first time, a labor shortage. Trade guilds formed and could negotiate for higher wages, so for the first time, wages went up. Generally, and I am not an economist, Preston Jacobs knows more, and commodity money systems work differently. When there's a scarcity of stuff, you get inflation. When the production is up, you get deflation. Even then, there's so many other factors. Don't take my word for it. There's a whole hour-long thing I don't want to get into about this. But the theory I got into is that the difference between Dunk and Egg and War of the Five Kings is, at the beginning of Game of Thrones, they're coming off of a 15-year era of peace under Robert Baratheon. They said things are really good, we're really prosperous. And the money values, the number value is lower than it was in Dunk and Egg. War of the Five Kings starts in autumn. Remember that seasons last for years, and they're comparable to economic cycles. That this is harvest time, that we're at the peak of production, this is autumn. The first Dunk and Egg happens in spring. And there hasn't been peace for as long, that there was a major war 15 years before in the first Blackfire Rebellion. And yeah, it's about as much time as between Game of Thrones and Robert's Rebellion, but it's spring, things aren't as good, a lot of people died. And therefore the value of money changed, so it might have to do with seasons. Problem is, we don't know what any of the seasons are during the season 1 of House of the Dragon. There's going to be time skips on the scale of 30 years. During the reign of Rhaenyra's father, Viserys. All we know is that the war starts in autumn, and it turns into winter in the middle of the war. But other than that, broadly, they say the reign of King Viserys is this unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. This is the Targaryens at their height. Things are really good. Because this is 80-year era of peace, up until the dance. We're starting a bit earlier than the dance with, if we're going by, we know we'll see the beginning of Viserys' reign. He reigned for like 30 years, and he succeeded his grandfather Jaehaerys, who ruled for 55 years. So at the start of season 1, it's going to be after 50 to 40 years of peace, and then another 30 years of relative peace. So the only observation I can give is, if values were what they were in Robert's Rebellion due to a long period of peace, that they seem to have gone through deflation, that it went from a horse is worth 3 gold dragons and change in Dunkin' Egg to 1 gold dragon can buy a whole horse at the end of Robert's reign, when things are really good and prosperous. The Dance of the Dragons starts, the reign of Viserys is even more prosperous than that. They have never had 80 years of peace. So maybe 1 gold dragon can buy multiple horses, is my only guess. And you wonder, why would someone walk around with that much money as just a coin you can drop? Yet they mention that, actually. And if you remember, tell me if any of you read the first Dunkin' Egg in the comments, that he feels really nervous after he sells his horse, that he's just carrying these 3 gold dragons around, that what if I get robbed? It's relatively easy to rob me of these things. So he wants to spend them as quickly as he can on a suit of armor. So, because a suit of armor is harder to steal from him than just a coin. But like I said, gold coins that are worth like a whole horse, and oh no, I dropped a coin, that thing's worth a whole horse, so we will never find it again. No, gold coins are used by lords, and they keep them in a strong box or something. Commoners, just the stuff you walk around with in your pocket, people walk around with copper pennies. They don't walk around with, oh no, I lost a gold coin. No, gold is worth a lot. They don't walk around with it like that. But this is, a question I'd ask the writers, if they're just wondering about, if writers who really care about the world building and aren't just running off to do Star Wars movies, they'd have to work out, these are people who hire a linguist to make up the fictional languages in the story. You'd think they put enough thought into how much is money worth, just so when we say it, we can keep consistent. So in one episode, someone says, I'm spending 1 gold dragon on this horse. The next episode, you don't have someone say, I'm spending 5 gold dragons on a horse. That it doesn't matter what, it's a fictional country, it's as the internal consistency. Much like the internal consistency of, travel distances, that if you say a dragon can fly 100 miles before it gets too tired to fly anymore, you have to stick to that rule. You can't break it. Similarly, it's the same thing of, we've established the relative value of their fictional currency, that you wouldn't be paying gold dragons for a meal at an inn, but you would for maybe a horse. So that worked out. So again, I just dashed this video off because I was so upset about, there is a relatively widespread cryptocurrency scam going around trying to push House of the Dragon themed cryptocurrency on people. So I want to quickly rattle off, and I know this would have been shorter if I scripted it out better, but I just did this spur of the moment. You understand. The currency issues raised by House of the Dragon, that we really don't know what their money values will be, and anytime they mention money in the show, this question will be raised of, well, what is money worth in this prequel era? The last point I'll leave you with is all this speculation about inflation, deflation might be meaningless, which is why I don't feel too bad about not going into it into detail, because people aren't stupid. After a couple of decades, even in real life Middle Ages, they would remint and revalue their currency. That periodically, not everyone could mint their currency in the Middle Ages, not just kings, but like local counts and dukes. You could remint your own local currency. They were all technically French deniers and stuff, but the different mints had different standards. So, money of Paris and money of Languedoc or something were technically different, and they just kept track of that. That they when you see them in contracts writing out money, they specify money of Paris or money of Troyes, money of Mans. So They just kept track of that the different mints were different, and it wasn't as standardized. That in Westeros, they do mention that periodically we have to reevaluate our mints. This is like 40 years after the Dance of the Dragons era. Viserys II, who was the father of Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy. So we're talking Daemon Blackfire's grandfather, Viserys II. And this is like the grandchildren of Rhaenyra's children. 40 years later, that says Viserys II. This is after the conquest of Dorne, after Baelor the Blessed. It says in his brief reign, he reevaluated and reissued the royal mints. That periodically, they don't just have currency from Aegon the Conqueror actively floating around in Westeros during Game of Thrones. That if the money value has changed so much, they'll have a buyback. And they'll go, give us all of your old coins. And there's still like one or two Aegon the Conqueror coins floating around after decades because someone didn't bring them in. But they'll take money out of circulation and reissue new currency. Same with, like, in real life, when United States quarters and pennies wear out or dollars get too damaged to keep using, they'll eventually reissue them from the bank when you spend it to the Royal Treasury. Well, with them, they'll reissue new coins that have a different gold to lead ratio in them. Literally revaluing the hard currency because it's got less gold in it, or maybe more gold in it. So I'm just talking about theoretical inflation. What if during Viserys II's reign, or even the reign of like Maekar or something, during Dunk and Egg, maybe they reissued a new currency that was reminted to have a different ratio so that the money value would sync back up with the market value. We don't know. So I know this is a rant. I'm sorry, it's not one of my better things, but there's a cryptocurrency scam. It made me think of money values, and that a world-building thing they have to come up with in House of the Dragon is we have no examples for what money should be like. And I wouldn't blame them. Whatever they say, I just want them to be consistent. They can say that one gold dragon can buy 10 horses. They can say that 10 gold dragons buy one horse. Because for all we know, they reminted the currency anyway. It's just that I want them to be consistent about it. And the other issue is when Game of Thrones started, we assumed every time they mention a story detail not in the books, Martin must have signed off on it. I mean, even little things like travel distances, or that Martin doesn't sign off on everything Game of Thrones did. Not even big things, little things that we'd assume, oh, they said there were 5 kings beyond the wall before Mance Rayder. Maybe the TV writers made that up without checking with Martin. That it could happen, it's just that might not be Martin's stuff. That's stuff they invent. So similarly, and it's not like it's a crime, in a normal TV show like the Star Wars Expanded Universe doesn't have Lucas sign off on everything, but they try to be internally consistent among themselves, or the MCU, or stuff like that. That I'm looking for internal consistency, and one of the things they need to do is establish, hey, how much is money worth? And that is a major feature of this setting, that it seems like, oh, how much is the Quatlu worth in Star Trek, or the Imperial credit in the Bad Batch Star Wars show. This is a low fantasy. This isn't a high fantasy like The Wheel of Time or even Lord of the Rings. A major plot point in this show, in this story, is low fantasy things like money and dirty politics. That there will be a debt crisis again. That one of the factors is that Rhaenyra doesn't have as much money as the Greens do, as Alicent does. And eventually go, well, we just have to raise taxes, and that causes all sorts of problems. That because this is a low fantasy world, concerns about pragmatic things like how much is their money worth are things of interest to us.